My name is Madison Parker, I'm 24 years old, and I'm standing in our family kitchen listening to my mother tell our entire extended family that I'm a college dropout failure. The words hit me like a slap across the face as Aunt Linda gasps and Uncle Robert shakes his head in disappointment. Cousin Jennifer smirks while typing furiously on her phone, probably spreading the news to everyone she knows. What they don't realize is that I'm actually excelling in night school while working full-time to keep our family afloat financially, and my mother knows the truth but chooses to destroy my reputation anyway. Before we dive into this story about family betrayal and fighting for your dreams, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. Please hit that like button if you've ever had family members tear you down instead of building you up, and don't forget to subscribe because this journey of standing up to toxic family members is just getting started. Trust me, what happens next will show you exactly how far some people will go to sabotage the ones they're supposed to love most. 6 months earlier, I had made one of the hardest decisions of my life. After my father passed away 2 years ago from a sudden heart attack, our family's financial situation became desperate. My mother Patricia had never worked outside the home, and the mortgage payments on our house were drowning us. While she spent her days crying and refusing to look for employment, I watched the foreclosure notices pile up on our kitchen counter. That's when I made the choice that would change everything. Instead of continuing my traditional day classes at the university, I switched to the night program so I could work 2 jobs during the day. My mornings started at 5:30 at the local coffee shop downtown, serving lattes and dealing with grumpy commuters who treated me like I was invisible. After my 8-hour shift there, I'd rush across town to work evenings at a retail store, folding clothes and helping customers who looked right through me. The transition wasn't easy. I had to give up everything that made college enjoyable. No more sorority meetings, no more campus activities, no more study groups in the library with friends who actually understood my major. Instead of lazy afternoons between classes, I was scrubbing espresso machines and dealing with angry customers who screamed at me over return policies I had no control over. My social life completely disappeared as my former classmates went to parties and football games while I counted register drawers and mopped floors. Initially, my mother seemed grateful for my sacrifice. She'd hug me when I came home exhausted at 11 at night, telling me how proud she was that I was keeping our family together. Those early weeks felt like we were a team, working together to overcome the tragedy that had torn our world apart. I believed that my hard work and dedication would eventually pay off, that we'd get back on our feet and everything would return to normal. But something shifted in Patricia's attitude as the months passed. Instead of appreciating my efforts, she began to resent them. The grateful hugs turned into cold stares when I dragged myself through the front door after 15-hour days. She stopped asking about my classes or my jobs, acting like my exhaustion was somehow a personal inconvenience to her. When neighbors would ask how I was doing in school, I noticed she'd change the subject quickly or give vague responses about me figuring things out. The first real warning sign came during a conversation with our neighbor Mrs. Henderson. I overheard Patricia telling her that I had changed schools but left out any mention of why or what I was actually doing. When Mrs. Henderson asked follow-up questions about my new program, Patricia became flustered and claimed I was still deciding on my path. The way she said it made it sound like I was some confused kid who couldn't make up her mind, not someone making huge sacrifices to save our family home. Things got worse when I discovered Patricia had been telling people at church that I was taking a break from education. She'd stand there in the fellowship hall after Sunday service, accepting sympathy from congregation members who thought I was struggling academically. These people who had watched me grow up, who knew I'd been an honor student throughout high school, were now looking at me with pity. They'd pat Patricia's shoulder and tell her not to worry, that some kids just need more time to mature. The first major confrontation happened on a Tuesday night when I came home to find Patricia crying at the kitchen table. She was surrounded by tissues and had clearly been on the phone with someone for hours. When I asked what was wrong, she exploded. She screamed that I was embarrassing her, that people were asking too many questions about my situation, and that she was tired of making excuses for me. I stood there in my coffee-stained uniform, having worked 16 hours that day, listening to her blame me for the awkwardness of her lies. I tried to reason with her, explaining that she could simply tell people the truth. I was working hard, maintaining excellent grades in my night classes, and doing everything possible to support our family. But Patricia wasn't interested in logic. She claimed that having a daughter who worked retail jobs made her look like a failure as a mother. In her mind, it was better for people to think I was a dropout than to know our family needed my minimum wage income to survive. My siblings, Jake and Emma, took her side immediately. Jake was 2 years younger than me and attending community college on my parents' savings account, money that should have been split between us but was now entirely his since I was working instead of studying seriously. Emma was still in high school but already acting like she was ashamed to be related to me. Neither of them seemed to understand that my jobs were keeping the lights on in their rooms and food on their plates. During family dinners, which became increasingly tense affairs, Patricia would make passive-aggressive comments about my choices while Jake and Emma snickered. They'd talk about their academic achievements and social activities while I sat there exhausted, knowing that my sacrifice was making their lives possible. When I tried to share news about my own classes or good grades, Patricia would quickly change the subject or make dismissive comments about night school not being real college. The situation reached a breaking point when I decided to stay quiet about everything for the sake of family harmony. I stopped defending myself when Patricia told her version of events to relatives and friends. I stopped correcting the record when people assumed I had dropped out or was struggling academically. I convinced myself that keeping peace in our household was more important than protecting my reputation, a decision I would come to regret deeply as Patricia's lies grew bolder and more damaging. Looking back, I can see that this was when I lost control of my own narrative. By choosing silence over truth, I had essentially given Patricia permission to reshape my story however she wanted. What started as vague deflections and omissions would soon become elaborate fabrications that would damage relationships and opportunities one had spent years building. But at the time, exhausted from working and studying while grieving my father's death, I just wanted the fighting to stop. 3 months into this new arrangement, I received news that should have been celebrated throughout our household. My grades in the night program were exceptional, earning me a spot on the dean's list for academic excellence. Despite working nearly 60 hours a week and studying late into the night, I was maintaining a 3.9 grade point average in challenging courses. My professors praised my dedication and work ethic, often commenting that they wished more students showed my level of commitment. But when I shared this achievement with Patricia, her reaction was the opposite of what any mother should feel. Instead of pride or excitement, her face twisted into something resembling disgust. She listened to my news with crossed arms and then immediately dismissed it, saying that night school standards were probably lower anyway. She refused to let me put the Dean's List certificate on the refrigerator where Jake's community college achievements were displayed prominently, claiming there wasn't enough room. Around this same time, Patricia began receiving phone calls from relatives asking about my struggles. Word had somehow spread through our extended family that I was having problems in college, though Patricia insisted she had no idea how these rumors started. During these conversations, which I could hear from my bedroom as I tried to study, Patricia began elaborating on the lies in ways that shocked me. She told Aunt Linda that I had been partying too much and couldn't handle the coursework. She informed Uncle Robert that I was going through a rebellious phase and had lost my academic focus. The most devastating call was with my grandmother, who lived 3 hours away and rarely got updates about our family. Patricia spent 40 minutes painting a picture of me as a troubled young woman who had given up on education because college was too hard for me. She described fictional scenarios where I came home drunk, skipped classes, and showed no interest in my future. My grandmother, who had always been proud of my academic achievements, was heartbroken by these stories. When she called me directly to offer support, I had to pretend I didn't know what she was talking about to avoid exposing Patricia's lies. The summer barbecue incident became a turning point in how publicly humiliated I felt. Patricia had invited several of my high school friends, people who knew me as a serious student with big dreams for my future. As we all gathered on the back patio, eating burgers and catching up, the conversation naturally turned to college experiences. My friends talked about their majors, professors, and campus life while I mostly listened, knowing I couldn't share my own positive experiences without contradicting Patricia's narrative. Then Patricia inserted herself into the conversation in the most damaging way possible. She announced to the group that I had given up on education and was taking time to figure out what I really wanted to do with my life. She spoke about my situation with fake concern, describing how worried she was about my lack of direction and inability to commit to academic work. My friends stared at me with confusion and pity, unable to reconcile the person they knew in high school with the failure Patricia was describing. The worst part was watching their faces change as Patricia continued her performance. Sarah, who had been my study partner for 4 years, looked genuinely shocked that I had apparently become someone who couldn't handle college coursework. Mike, who had always asked me for help with math problems, seemed confused about how I had supposedly lost all academic ability. These were people who knew my real capabilities, yet they were believing Patricia's lies because no mother would make up such harmful stories about her own daughter. I tried to salvage the situation by hinting at the truth. I mentioned that I was still taking classes and doing well, but Patricia quickly jumped in to clarify that I was only taking easy courses at a different kind of school to build my confidence back up. Every attempt I made to correct the record was twisted into confirmation of her narrative. When I mentioned my job at the coffee shop, Patricia framed it as evidence that I had given up on professional ambitions. When I tried to talk about my current classes, she made it sound like I was taking remedial courses for students who couldn't succeed in regular programs. By the end of that barbecue, I had lost respect from people who had known me for years. They left our house believing I had become a completely different person, someone who had squandered opportunities and lacked the intelligence or drive to succeed in higher education. Several of them never spoke to me the same way again, treating me with the kind of polite distance reserved for people they felt sorry for but didn't want to get too involved with. The impact extended beyond just social embarrassment. My former classmates began spreading Patricia's version of events to other people from our high school, creating a ripple effect of damaged reputation that reached far beyond our immediate social circle. People who barely knew me were suddenly experts on my supposed failures, nodding sympathetically when my name came up and expressing surprise that such a smart girl had lost her way so dramatically. Patricia seemed to enjoy the attention these stories brought her. People praised her for being supportive of my struggles and offered advice on how to help children who were going through difficult phases. She accepted their sympathy gracefully, playing the role of a concerned mother dealing with a disappointing daughter. The more people felt sorry for her situation, the more elaborate her stories became. The second major betrayal occurred when Patricia contacted my ex-boyfriend Ryan, someone I had dated seriously during my freshman year before my father's death changed everything. Ryan and I had ended things amicably when I switched to night school, understanding that our schedules would no longer be compatible. He had always respected my dedication to family and my willingness to make sacrifices for people I loved. Patricia called Ryan under the pretense of checking on how I was doing, then proceeded to tell him that I couldn't cut it in college and was struggling with basic life decisions. She painted a picture of someone who had fallen apart academically and emotionally, suggesting that perhaps Ryan was lucky things didn't work out between us. Ryan, confused and concerned, reached out to mutual friends to ask what had happened to me, spreading Patricia's lies even further into my former social circles. Jake and Emma, rather than being horrified by Patricia's behavior, actively began supporting her narrative. Jake started telling people at his community college that his sister had dropped out because she wasn't smart enough for real college work. Emma shared dramatic stories with her high school friends about how embarrassing it was to have a sister who had given up on education. Both of them seemed to enjoy the attention they received as the successful children in a family where one kid had supposedly failed. The psychological impact of this sustained campaign against my reputation was devastating. I began to doubt my own memory of events and accomplishments, wondering if maybe I really was doing something wrong. The constant stress of maintaining my jobs and studies while defending against lies was exhausting in ways that went beyond physical tiredness. I found myself avoiding social situations where I might encounter people who had heard Patricia's stories, effectively isolating myself from support networks I desperately needed. Most painfully, I was losing friendships based on complete fabrications. People who had cared about me were now viewing me as someone who had let them down or wasted their investment in our relationship. The person they thought I had become was someone they didn't want to associate with, and I couldn't blame them for that. The tragedy was that this person Patricia described didn't actually exist, but the damage to my real relationships was entirely real. The discovery that would shatter any remaining trust one had in my mother came on a rainy Thursday afternoon when I was looking for tax documents in Patricia's filing cabinet. She had asked me to find some paperwork related to my father's estate, and as I searched through folders, I stumbled across bank statements that made my blood run cold. There, printed in black and white, was evidence of the most profound betrayal yet. My college fund, the money my father had saved for years specifically for my education, had been systematically drained over the past 6 months. Instead of being used for tuition and books as intended, the statements showed withdrawals for spa treatments, designer handbags, expensive dinners at upscale restaurants, and shopping sprees at stores I couldn't afford to walk into even as an employee. Patricia had been living a secret life of luxury while I worked myself to exhaustion believing we were struggling financially. The amounts were staggering. In 1 month alone, she had spent more on cosmetic treatments and clothes than I earned in 3 months of combined wages from both my jobs. While I was eating ramen noodles for dinner after 16-hour workdays, Patricia was getting weekly manicures and buying jewelry that cost more than our monthly mortgage payment. The college fund that should have covered my remaining 2 years of education was nearly empty, squandered on purchases that served no purpose other than Patricia's personal gratification. When I confronted her with the statements, shaking from anger and disbelief, Patricia's response revealed the calculated nature of her betrayal. She didn't deny the spending or express shame about what she had done. Instead, she looked at me with cold eyes and said, "You're not really in college anymore anyway, so what difference does it make?" Her casual dismissal of my education and future was like a knife to the heart. As I pressed for answers, the full scope of her manipulation became clear. Patricia admitted that she had planned this theft from the moment I switched to night school. In her twisted logic, working retail jobs meant I had given up on serious education, so the money was wasted if used for my classes. She felt entitled to spend it on herself as compensation for the embarrassment of having a daughter who worked minimum wage jobs. The confrontation escalated when I demanded she stop spending the remainder of the fund immediately. Patricia laughed and told me I was being dramatic about money that was helping the family anyway. When I pointed out that spa treatments and designer shoes weren't helping anyone but her, she became vicious. She accused me of being selfish and ungrateful for questioning her decisions after everything she had sacrificed as a single mother. The evidence was overwhelming. Credit card statements showed purchases at high-end boutiques on days when I was working double shifts to pay for groceries. Bank records revealed cash withdrawals that coincided with shopping trips to malls across town. Patricia had been living like a wealthy woman while allowing me to believe our family was on the verge of financial collapse. The psychological manipulation went deeper than just the money. Patricia had used my love for our family and my fear of losing our home to trick me into giving up my normal college experience. Every time I questioned whether I needed to work so much, she would cry about foreclosure notices and unpaid bills. Meanwhile, she was spending thousands of dollars on luxuries while those same bills sat unpaid on purpose to maintain the illusion of financial crisis. When I realized how deliberately I had been deceived, the betrayal felt worse than anything she had done to my reputation. Patricia had exploited my grief over my father's death and my sense of responsibility to family, turning my love into a weapon against my own future. She had watched me sacrifice my youth, my social life, my traditional college experience, and my health while she enjoyed luxuries funded by money meant for my education. The confrontation revealed Patricia's deep-seated jealousy of my academic success. She admitted that my achievements made her feel stupid and that she resented the attention I had always received for being a good student. In her mind, my intelligence was a personal attack on her own insecurities about her lack of education. Destroying my college fund was her way of leveling the playing field and ensuring I couldn't surpass her accomplishments. Patricia's justification for her actions showed a level of narcissism that frightened me. She claimed that my success reflected poorly on her parenting, suggesting that if I did too well academically, people would think she was somehow inadequate. She preferred having a daughter who was seen as a failure because it generated sympathy and attention for her as a struggling single mother. My actual achievements threatened the narrative she had created about herself as a victim. The financial abuse extended beyond just the college fund. Patricia had been opening credit cards in my name without my knowledge, using my social security number and forged signatures to access additional money for her spending sprees. She had destroyed my credit rating before I even knew I had one, leaving me with debt I had never agreed to and purchases I had never made. During this confrontation, Patricia recruited other family members to support her position. She called Jake and Emma into the room and told them I was being greedy about money that belonged to the whole family. Both of my siblings immediately took her side, arguing that I was being selfish for wanting my college fund used for college when Patricia needed it for other things. Their lack of understanding about basic financial responsibility and educational investment was shocking. The extended family pressure campaign began immediately after our confrontation. Patricia called Aunt Linda and Uncle Robert, telling them I was being difficult about family finances and trying to control money that wasn't really mine. She painted herself as a victim of my unreasonable demands while leaving out any mention of the spa treatments and shopping sprees. By the end of the week, I was receiving calls from relatives lecturing me about being selfish and not supporting my mother during her difficult time. Cousin Jennifer became particularly involved in the harassment campaign, constantly calling and texting me with messages about how disappointed the family was in my attitude. She accused me of being money-hungry and claimed I was trying to abandon my mother when she needed support most. The irony of being called greedy by people who had no idea I was working 2 jobs to pay for basic household expenses was almost too much to bear. The third betrayal in this sequence was perhaps the most professionally damaging. Patricia contacted my night school directly, claiming to be concerned about my mental stability and suggesting that I might be experiencing psychological problems that were affecting my academic performance. She told the administration that I was under severe stress and might need special accommodations or monitoring to ensure I wasn't becoming a danger to myself or others. This contact triggered a series of meetings with academic counselors and mental health professionals who were required to investigate Patricia's claims. While these conversations ultimately cleared me of any mental health concerns, they created a paper trail that made me appear unstable to administrators. The time I spent in mandatory counseling sessions was time taken away from studying and working, adding even more stress to my already overwhelming schedule. The most devastating aspect of this betrayal was realizing that Patricia was willing to sabotage my academic standing to maintain control over the narrative about my life. She would rather have school officials think I was mentally ill than allow them to see me as a successful student who was thriving despite difficult circumstances. Her lies were becoming increasingly dangerous, moving beyond social embarrassment into territory that could permanently damage my educational and professional opportunities. The escalation of Patricia's campaign against me reached a new level of cruelty when she began targeting my employment. What had started as lies to relatives and friends now expanded into direct attempts to sabotage my ability to earn the income that was keeping our family afloat. The hypocrisy of her attacking the very jobs that were paying for her lifestyle would have been laughable if it weren't so devastating to my future. It started with phone calls to my coffee shop manager, a woman named Carol who had always appreciated my reliability and work ethic. Patricia began calling the store during busy morning rushes, claiming to be concerned about my emotional state. She told Carol that I was going through a difficult time and might not be performing at my usual level. These calls always came when I wasn't working, allowing Patricia to share her version of events without my knowledge or ability to defend myself. Carol, who had never seen any problems with my work performance, was confused by these calls. She pulled me aside one Tuesday morning and asked if everything was okay at home. When I assured her that I was fine and my work hadn't suffered, Carol looked relieved but mentioned that my mother seemed really worried about me. The seed of doubt had been planted, and I could see Carol watching me more closely in the following days, looking for signs of the problems Patricia had described. The situation escalated when Patricia began calling during my shifts, demanding that Carol pull me away from customers to take emergency phone calls that turned out to be nothing more than harassment about my attitude toward family. These interruptions disrupted the flow of service during our busiest times, making me appear unprofessional and unreliable. Carol became increasingly frustrated with these calls, and I could see my standing as a valued employee beginning to erode. At my retail job, Patricia employed a different strategy. She visited the store in person, approaching my supervisor Janet under the pretense of being a concerned parent. Patricia told Janet that I had been having problems at home and might be acting strangely or making poor decisions. She suggested that Janet keep a closer eye on me and maybe reduce my responsibilities until I got back on track with my life. Janet, who had always trusted me with opening and closing duties, suddenly began questioning my judgment on routine tasks. She started double-checking my register counts, reviewing my sales transactions more closely, and asking other employees to verify my work. The increased scrutiny was humiliating and exhausting, especially since my performance had always been exemplary. I was being treated like a problem employee despite months of positive reviews and customer compliments. The most damaging aspect of Patricia's workplace interference was how she used my reduced college schedule as evidence of instability. She told both employers that my dropping out of college showed I couldn't stick with commitments and might not be reliable long-term. This narrative was particularly effective because it seemed to explain why someone with my educational background was working retail and food service jobs instead of pursuing traditional internships or career-focused positions. Patricia's strategy was insidious because it contained enough truth to be believable while completely distorting the context. Yes, I had left traditional day classes, but not because I couldn't handle the work. Yes, I was working jobs that didn't match my career goals, but only temporarily to support my family. Yes, I was under stress, but from working too much rather than from academic failure. Patricia weaponized these facts to create a false narrative that portrayed me as unstable and unreliable. The financial pressure created by this workplace sabotage was immediate and severe. Both employers began reducing my hours, supposedly due to concerns about my well-being but actually because Patricia had convinced them I was a liability. The coffee shop cut my schedule from 40 hours to 25, while the retail store reduced my shifts from part-time to occasional fill-in work. My income dropped by nearly 40% overnight, making it impossible to maintain our household expenses at the previous level. Patricia used this financial crisis, which she had created, to pressure me into admitting the truth about dropping out of college. She argued that if I just told people she was right about my academic failure, the family stress would decrease and maybe I could focus better on work. In her twisted logic, accepting her lies publicly would somehow improve my employment situation, even though the workplace problems were directly caused by her interference. My brother Jake actively participated in this campaign by vandalizing my car in the parking lot of the coffee shop. He scratched profanities into the paint and broke the passenger side mirror, then told Patricia that I must have done it myself as a cry for attention. When I reported the vandalism to police, Patricia convinced them it was probably teenage pranks and not worth investigating seriously. Jake later bragged to Emma about his actions, treating it like a game rather than criminal destruction of property. Emma's contribution to the sabotage was equally damaging but more sophisticated. She created fake social media posts claiming to be worried about her sister's mental health and asking for prayers for our family during this difficult time. These posts painted me as someone experiencing a breakdown while portraying Emma as a caring sister dealing with a disturbing situation. Friends and acquaintances who saw these posts began treating me with the careful concern reserved for people they thought might be unstable. The isolation created by this coordinated campaign was devastating. Former friends started avoiding me, either because they believed Patricia's lies about my instability or because they didn't want to get involved in what appeared to be serious family drama. Classmates from high school would cross the street rather than risk an awkward conversation with someone they thought was having a breakdown. Even casual acquaintances at work began keeping their distance, unsure how to interact with someone whose own mother was publicly concerned about her mental state. The only source of support I found during this period came from my study group at night school. These were people who knew me only through my academic performance and work ethic in class. They had no connection to Patricia's lies and could see me for who I really was rather than who she claimed I had become. In this environment, I was still the serious student I had always been, someone who contributed meaningfully to discussions and helped classmates understand difficult concepts. Derek Martinez became a particularly important ally during this time. He was a few years older than me, working full-time while pursuing his business degree through the night program. Derek noticed that I seemed stressed and exhausted beyond what even demanding schedules typically caused. When he asked if everything was okay, I found myself telling him the truth about my family situation for the first time in months. Derek's reaction was completely different from what I had expected. Instead of judging me for having family problems or questioning my academic abilities, he was outraged by Patricia's behavior. As someone who had also made sacrifices to pursue education while supporting family members, he understood the challenges I was facing and recognized the dedication required to maintain good grades under such circumstances. Through Derek, I learned that Patricia's sabotage had extended even further than I realized. She had begun contacting professors at the night school, claiming to be concerned about my emotional stability and suggesting that my academic performance might be compromised by personal problems. Derek discovered this when his professor Dr. Williams mentioned receiving concerning calls about one of their students from a worried family member. The fourth major attack occurred when Patricia created fake social media accounts to harass my professors directly. Using false names and borrowed photos, she sent messages to my instructors claiming that I had been making disturbing statements about school and expressing concerning thoughts about my future. These messages were designed to make professors question my mental stability and potentially remove me from classes for safety reasons. Dr. Williams, who had always been impressed by my work ethic and academic performance, was confused by these reports because they contradicted everything she knew about my character and capabilities. She called me into her office to discuss the situation, giving me the opportunity to explain what was really happening at home. Her support and understanding became crucial to maintaining my academic standing during this period of escalated harassment. The professional damage extended beyond just my current jobs and classes. Patricia had begun contacting potential employers where I had submitted applications, telling them that I had reliability issues and might not be suitable for positions requiring responsibility or commitment. She systematically sabotaged job opportunities that might have allowed me to improve my financial situation or gain experience relevant to my career goals. The psychological toll of being under constant attack from multiple directions was enormous. I was fighting battles at work, at home, and at school simultaneously while trying to maintain the academic performance that represented my only hope for a better future. The stress manifested in physical symptoms including headaches, insomnia, and digestive problems that made it even harder to function at the level my responsibilities demanded. Most painfully, I was watching Patricia destroy relationships and opportunities that had taken years to build. The reputation I had earned through consistent hard work and academic achievement was being systematically demolished by someone who claimed to love me. Every day brought new evidence that the person who should have been my strongest supporter was actually my most dangerous enemy. The turning point in my nightmare began with an unexpected conversation in Dr. Williams' office. She had called me in ostensibly to discuss my midterm paper, but as we talked about my analysis of business ethics and family-owned enterprises, she made an observation that changed everything. "Madison," she said, looking at me with genuine concern, "your work consistently demonstrates sophisticated critical thinking and exceptional time management skills. Yet I've been receiving some very troubling calls about your supposedly declining mental state. These reports don't match the student I see in class at all." Dr. Williams had been teaching for over 20 years and had developed an instinct for recognizing students who were struggling versus those who were being undermined by external forces. She explained that the anonymous calls and messages about my emotional instability had actually raised red flags for her because they contradicted every interaction she'd had with me. Students experiencing genuine mental health crises typically showed declining academic performance, irregular attendance, or concerning behavior in class. I had displayed none of these warning signs. Her willingness to question the narrative rather than simply accepting it as fact gave me the first real validation I had experienced in months. When I finally told her the complete truth about Patricia's campaign against me, Dr. Williams was both shocked by the extent of the abuse and impressed by my resilience in maintaining academic excellence despite such overwhelming circumstances. She immediately connected me with campus counseling resources, not because she thought I was unstable, but because she recognized I was dealing with a genuinely abusive situation. Derek's investigation into the social media harassment had uncovered evidence that would prove crucial in my eventual vindication. His background in digital marketing had given him skills in tracing online accounts and identifying patterns in fake profiles. He discovered that the accounts messaging my professors had been created in clusters, using similar profile construction techniques and posting patterns that suggested a single person behind multiple identities. The fake profiles Patricia had created were surprisingly sophisticated, complete with stolen photos, fabricated backstories, and enough activity to appear legitimate at first glance. However, Derek's analysis revealed telltale signs of coordination, including similar writing styles, identical grammatical errors, and posting times that aligned with periods when Patricia would have been home alone with access to our computer. The digital trail was more extensive than she probably realized, creating evidence that could definitively prove her involvement. Derek also introduced me to Sarah Chen, another student in our program who was dealing with family members actively undermining her educational goals. Sarah's parents had immigrated from Taiwan and expected her to focus solely on marriage and family rather than pursuing her accounting degree. They had been sabotaging her efforts by hiding her textbooks, scheduling family obligations during exam periods, and telling relatives that her education was a waste of time that would make her unmarriageable. Meeting Sarah was revolutionary because it helped me understand that Patricia's behavior was not just typical family stress but a recognized pattern of educational abuse. Sarah had been researching the phenomenon for a paper in her sociology elective and shared articles about parents who felt threatened by their children's academic success. The psychological profiles described individuals who sabotaged their children's achievements to maintain power and control, often targeting family members whose success made them feel inadequate or insecure. Professor Dr. Williams went beyond just offering support and actively began helping me document the harassment I was experiencing. She advised me to start recording conversations with Patricia, saving all text messages and voicemails, and keeping detailed written records of incidents with dates and witnesses. Dr. Williams had dealt with other cases of family interference in students' education and understood the importance of building a comprehensive evidence file. The legal aid consultation she arranged was eye-opening in ways I hadn't expected. The attorney, Maria Santos, specialized in cases involving family financial abuse and educational sabotage. She explained that Patricia's actions constituted several forms of illegal behavior, including identity theft for the credit cards opened in my name, harassment for the workplace interference, and potentially fraud for the misuse of my college fund money. Maria assured me that I had grounds for both criminal charges and civil action to recover the stolen funds. During this period, I made a disturbing discovery that added another layer to Patricia's deception. While organizing paperwork for the legal consultation, I found that Patricia had been intercepting my mail, including official correspondence from the university about scholarship opportunities and academic recognition. She had hidden acceptance letters for honors programs, notifications about grants I had qualified for, and invitations to academic events where I could have networked with professors and potential employers. The intercepted scholarship notifications were particularly devastating. I had qualified for several merit-based awards that could have eliminated my need to work such exhausting schedules, but Patricia had prevented me from ever knowing about these opportunities. One scholarship alone would have covered my remaining tuition and living expenses, allowing me to focus on studies and complete my degree in the traditional timeline. Patricia's interference had cost me thousands of dollars and countless opportunities for academic advancement. Derek's family, upon learning about my situation, made an offer that demonstrated more kindness than I had experienced from my own relatives in months. His parents, both immigrants who had worked multiple jobs while pursuing their own education, understood the value of supporting someone committed to academic achievement. They invited me to stay in their guest room while I sorted out my living situation and legal options. The contrast between Derek's family dynamic and my own was stark and illuminating. His parents asked about my classes, celebrated my good grades, and treated my educational goals as worthy investments of time and energy. They had immigrated to America specifically to provide better opportunities for their children and viewed education as the most valuable gift they could offer. Their pride in Derek's academic achievements was genuine and unconditional, the kind of support I had once taken for granted from my own family. Moving out of Patricia's house, even temporarily, had an immediate positive impact on my academic performance. Without constant harassment and stress at home, I could focus completely during study sessions and sleep peacefully without worrying about what new sabotage I might face the next day. My professors noticed the improvement in my class participation and the quality of my assignments, commenting that I seemed more relaxed and confident in academic discussions. Patricia's reaction to my temporary move was swift and escalatory. She called Derek's family directly, claiming that I was mentally unstable and potentially dangerous to have in their home. She suggested that they were being manipulated by someone who was good at lying and warned them to watch their valuables because I might steal from them. Derek's parents, having seen my character firsthand, were appalled by these calls and immediately understood the level of toxicity I had been dealing with. The false police report Patricia filed claiming I was a missing person became a crucial piece of evidence in building my case. She contacted local police 3 days after I moved to Derek's family's house, claiming she was worried about my safety and mental state. When officers arrived at Derek's address to check on my welfare, they found me studying quietly in the living room while Derek's mother prepared dinner for the family. The responding officers were professional but clearly annoyed by what they quickly recognized as a false report motivated by family drama rather than genuine safety concerns. When they saw my academic materials spread across the dining table and witnessed the normal, supportive family environment at Derek's house, they understood that Patricia's claims about my disappearance and dangerous mental state were fabricated. Their report documented Patricia's false statements, creating official evidence of her harassment. The backfire from the false police report extended beyond just creating evidence of Patricia's lies. The officers were required to follow up with Patricia about filing a false report, and their questions made it clear that she could face legal consequences for misusing emergency resources. Patricia's attempt to paint herself as a worried mother concerned about her daughter's safety was undermined by her inability to explain why she hadn't contacted me directly or why she was unaware that I had moved in with friends rather than disappearing mysteriously. The fifth betrayal occurred when Emma escalated her own participation in Patricia's campaign by stealing my laptop, which contained 2 years' worth of coursework, research projects, and notes for my current classes. Emma took the computer from Derek's house during a visit when the family was at work and I was in class, timing her theft to maximize the academic damage it would cause. Losing those files 3 weeks before final exams could have been catastrophic to my academic standing. However, Emma's theft also provided the clearest evidence yet of the coordinated nature of my family's campaign against me. The timing was too precise to be coincidental, occurring just as I was making progress in documenting Patricia's financial abuse and harassment. Derek's family had security cameras that captured Emma entering and leaving with the laptop, providing video evidence of the theft that would prove crucial in my eventual vindication. The recovery of my laptop through police intervention marked the first time Patricia and her allies faced real consequences for their actions. Derek's family pressed charges for theft, and Emma was arrested within 48 hours. The police investigation revealed that Patricia had encouraged the theft and helped plan its timing, adding conspiracy charges to the growing list of illegal activities I was now able to prove with documentation. Most importantly, this period taught me that I wasn't alone and that Patricia's version of normal family relationships was actually deeply dysfunctional. Derek's family, Dr. Williams, Sarah, and other allies showed me what healthy support systems looked like and gave me the strength to fight back against years of abuse and manipulation. Their belief in my character and potential provided the foundation I would need for the confrontations and legal battles ahead. With my laptop recovered and solid evidence of the systematic harassment campaign, I finally felt ready to stop defending and start attacking. The transformation from victim to advocate for my own truth began with filing a formal harassment complaint with campus security. Dr. Williams accompanied me to this meeting, providing professional testimony about the suspicious calls and messages my professors had received, along with her observations about the stark contrast between these reports and my actual academic performance. The campus security investigation was more thorough than I had expected. They took statements from multiple professors who had received concerning calls about my mental state, documented the timeline of these contacts, and analyzed the patterns that suggested coordinated harassment rather than legitimate family concern. The security director, Ms. Rodriguez, had dealt with similar cases and recognized the signs of educational sabotage designed to undermine a student's academic standing. Derek's digital investigation had produced a comprehensive file of evidence that proved Patricia's involvement in the fake social media accounts. He had traced IP addresses, analyzed writing patterns, and documented the coordination between different accounts that were supposedly operated by unrelated concerned individuals. The sophistication of his analysis impressed both campus security and the legal aid attorney, providing the kind of technical evidence that would be difficult for Patricia to dispute. Professor Dr. Williams went beyond providing testimony and actively helped me gather character references from faculty members who had worked with me over the past 2 years. These professors provided written statements about my academic performance, work ethic, and professional behavior that directly contradicted every claim Patricia had made about my mental instability or academic failure. The unanimous praise from respected faculty members created a powerful counter-narrative to Patricia's lies. The social media evidence compilation revealed the extent of the damage Patricia had caused to my reputation. Derek and Sarah helped me document hundreds of false posts, messages, and comments that had been spreading lies about my academic and mental health status. We created screenshots with timestamps and traced the accounts back to their sources, building a case that demonstrated both the scope and malicious intent of the harassment campaign. When I finally presented this evidence to extended family members, starting with Aunt Linda and Uncle Robert, their reactions were explosive. Aunt Linda, who had been one of Patricia's most sympathetic supporters, was horrified to learn about my actual Dean's List achievements and the scholarship opportunities one had been denied. Uncle Robert, a businessman who understood the value of hard work and education, was outraged that Patricia had stolen my college fund money for personal luxuries while I worked multiple jobs. The family splits that formed after these revelations were immediate and decisive. Relatives who had been offering Patricia sympathy and advice about dealing with her troubled daughter suddenly understood that they had been manipulated into supporting emotional abuse. The shame and anger they felt about being deceived into participating in the harassment of an innocent family member created powerful allies in my fight for vindication. Aunt Linda became particularly vocal in demanding that Patricia account for her actions. As the family member who had received the most dramatic calls about my supposed failures, she felt personally betrayed by the lies and manipulation. Linda began contacting other relatives to share the real story, systematically undoing the damage Patricia had caused to my reputation throughout our extended family network. My academic achievements, when finally shared publicly, created a stark contrast to Patricia's narrative that was impossible to ignore. The Dean's List certificates, scholarship notifications, and professor recommendations painted a picture of a dedicated student excelling under difficult circumstances rather than the failure Patricia had described. Extended family members were shocked to learn that I had maintained a 3.9 grade point average while working 60 hours a week and dealing with family harassment. The exposure of Jake's own college struggles added another layer of revelation that undermined Patricia's credibility. While she had been portraying me as the academic failure in the family, Jake was actually failing multiple classes at community college and had been caught using drugs on campus. His academic record was a disaster that Patricia had been hiding while using my supposed struggles as a distraction from his real problems. Emma's involvement in the harassment campaign became undeniable when other family members learned about her theft of my laptop and her fake social media posts expressing concern about my mental health. The calculated nature of her participation, particularly the timing of the theft to coincide with my final exams, revealed a level of malice that shocked relatives who had viewed her as an innocent teenager caught in family drama. Patricia's financial abuse became the most damaging revelation for her reputation among family members. The evidence of luxury purchases made with my college fund money while I worked exhausting jobs to pay family bills created outrage that crossed generational lines. Grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins who had contributed to that education fund over the years felt betrayed by Patricia's misuse of money they had invested in my future. My employers, when presented with proof of Patricia's false reports and harassment, were embarrassed by how easily they had been manipulated. Carol at the coffee shop restored my full work schedule and apologized for doubting my reliability based on Patricia's calls. Janet at the retail store gave me a promotion and increased responsibility as compensation for the unfair scrutiny I had endured due to external interference. The vindication at work was particularly satisfying because it demonstrated that my actual performance had never been the problem. Both employers acknowledged that I had been one of their most dependable and skilled employees, and that Patricia's interference had created problems that had never existed organically. They also implemented policies to prevent family members from making unauthorized reports about employees in the future. Derek's family, who had witnessed Patricia's harassment firsthand, provided additional testimony about her behavior that supported my legal case. Their security camera footage showing Emma's theft, recordings of Patricia's threatening phone calls, and documentation of her false claims about my mental state added credibility to my accounts of the abuse I had suffered. The sixth attack that backfired occurred when Patricia attempted to have me evicted from Derek's family's home by claiming I was an unstable tenant who posed a danger to their household. She contacted their homeowners association and local authorities with false reports about disturbances and safety concerns. However, Derek's family was well regarded in their community, and Patricia's claims were quickly dismissed as harassment from a disgruntled family member. The attempted eviction actually strengthened the case against Patricia because it demonstrated the lengths she was willing to go to maintain control over my living situation. Legal aid attorney Maria Santos explained that this behavior showed a pattern of escalating harassment designed to isolate me from support systems and force me back into an abusive household environment. Professor Dr. Williams connected me with other students who had experienced similar family sabotage, creating a support network of people who understood the unique challenges of pursuing education while dealing with family members who felt threatened by academic success. These connections were invaluable not only for emotional support but also for practical strategies about protecting academic work and maintaining focus despite external harassment. The documentation process taught me important lessons about protecting myself from future attacks. I learned to save all communications, record conversations when legally permissible, and maintain detailed written records of incidents with dates and witnesses. These skills would prove crucial not only for my immediate situation but also for helping other students who found themselves in similar circumstances. Campus counseling services, initially contacted because of Patricia's false reports about my mental health, became genuine allies once they understood the real situation. The counselors were experienced in recognizing the difference between students experiencing mental health crises and those dealing with external abuse. Their professional assessments contradicted Patricia's claims and provided additional expert testimony about my actual psychological state. Most importantly, this phase taught me that fighting back against abuse was not only possible but necessary. The evidence I had gathered, the allies I had found, and the legal resources available to me created a foundation for holding Patricia accountable for her actions. The transformation from helpless victim to empowered advocate marked a turning point that would culminate in complete vindication and the restoration of my reputation and relationships. The family gathering where I chose to present all my evidence was Thanksgiving dinner, exactly 1 year after the nightmare had begun. I had carefully planned this confrontation, knowing that having the entire extended family present would provide witnesses to Patricia's reactions and prevent her from later claiming my evidence was fabricated. Derek and his parents attended as my invited guests, bringing an outside perspective that would be crucial in maintaining objectivity during what I knew would be an explosive revelation. The presentation began with academic transcripts showing my actual performance in night school. I spread the dean's list certificates across the dining room table where everyone could see them, followed by scholarship notifications Patricia had hidden, and professor recommendations that praised my dedication and academic excellence. The silence in the room was deafening as relatives who had been offering sympathy for my supposed failures absorbed the evidence of my actual achievements. Aunt Linda was the first to speak, her voice shaking with anger as she realized the extent to which she had been deceived. "Patricia," she said, pointing at the scholarships I had missed because of intercepted mail, "you let us all believe Madison was failing when she was actually earning honors? You made us think she was struggling when she was supporting this entire household?" The betrayal in Linda's voice was profound, representing not just personal hurt but the collective outrage of family members who felt manipulated. The financial evidence created an even more dramatic reaction. I presented bank statements showing Patricia's luxury purchases alongside documentation of my work schedules and the family bills I had been paying. Uncle Robert, who had always prided himself on financial responsibility, was appalled by the evidence of educational fund theft. His analysis of the spending patterns revealed that Patricia had been living like a wealthy woman while allowing everyone to believe our family was struggling financially. The digital evidence Derek had compiled provided undeniable proof of the harassment campaign. We showed relatives the fake social media accounts, traced back to our home computer, and demonstrated the coordination between different profiles that were supposedly operated by unrelated individuals. Emma's involvement became impossible to deny when her own social media activity showed her posting fake concerns about my mental health while privately celebrating my struggles. Patricia's reaction to this exposure was a masterclass in manipulation tactics that, unfortunately for her, everyone present could now recognize clearly. She immediately began crying and claiming that she had been trying to protect the family from embarrassment about our financial situation. When this approach failed to generate sympathy, she switched to anger, accusing me of betraying family secrets and making everyone turn against her during her time of need. The luxury purchase evidence was impossible for Patricia to deny or justify. Credit card statements showing spa treatments, designer handbags, and expensive restaurant meals were spread across the table next to my work schedules showing 60-hour weeks at minimum wage jobs. The visual contrast was so stark that even Jake and Emma, who had been Patricia's strongest supporters, seemed stunned by the evidence of her financial abuse. Brother Jake's own college failures and drug use, which Patricia had been hiding while using my supposed struggles as a distraction, became public knowledge during this gathering. Cousin Jennifer revealed that Jake had been selling drugs at his community college and was facing potential expulsion for academic dishonesty. The irony of Patricia portraying me as the failing child while covering up Jake's actual problems was not lost on anyone present. Emma's theft of my laptop and creation of fake social media posts was addressed directly with video evidence from Derek's family security cameras. Watching footage of her entering their home and leaving with my computer while I was at class made her participation in the harassment campaign undeniable. The calculated timing of the theft, designed to maximize damage during final exam period, revealed a level of malice that shocked even relatives who had known her since childhood. The intercepted scholarship notifications created particular outrage among family members who had contributed to my education fund over the years. Grandparents, aunts, and uncles learned that their investments in my future had been not only stolen for luxury purchases but that additional opportunities for funding my education had been deliberately hidden from me. The compound effect of Patricia's sabotage became clear. She had both stolen existing money and prevented me from accessing new resources. Dr. Williams, who attended the gathering to provide professional testimony, explained the academic and psychological impact of educational sabotage on students' long-term success. Her expertise lent credibility to my account while helping family members understand that Patricia's behavior constituted a recognized form of abuse rather than ordinary family conflict. The professor's assessment that I had shown remarkable resilience in maintaining academic excellence despite systematic harassment resonated powerfully with relatives. The legal consequences Patricia faced were outlined by attorney Maria Santos, who had prepared a comprehensive case for both criminal charges and civil recovery of stolen funds. The evidence supported charges for identity theft related to credit cards opened in my name, fraud for the misuse of educational funds, harassment for workplace interference, and filing false police reports. The potential penalties were serious enough to make Patricia's situation undeniably grave. Extended family members who had participated in the harassment campaign based on Patricia's lies were confronted with evidence of their own roles in supporting abuse. Cousin Jennifer was shown screenshots of her social media posts spreading false information about my mental health, while other relatives learned that their concerned calls to my employers had been based on completely fabricated stories about my academic and personal failures. The community impact of Patricia's lies was addressed when several neighbors and church members who had attended the gathering learned the truth about my situation. These were people who had offered sympathy for Patricia's supposed struggles with a troubled daughter, and their embarrassment at being deceived was visible. The social consequences for Patricia extended far beyond our immediate family to include loss of respect from community members she had manipulated. Emma and Jake faced immediate consequences from the extended family for their participation in the harassment. Grandparents who had been planning to help fund their education reconsidered these investments after learning about their roles in sabotaging my academic success. The loss of family financial support was a direct result of their choices to participate in Patricia's campaign rather than supporting truth and fairness. Patricia's social isolation became apparent as family members processed the extent of her deception and manipulation. Relatives who had been her closest confidants expressed feeling betrayed and used, recognizing that their sympathy and support had been exploited to enable abuse. The network of family relationships she had relied on for validation and assistance began dissolving as people understood their unwitting participation in harming an innocent family member. The restoration of my academic reputation was immediate and comprehensive. Family members who had avoided me or treated me with pity began expressing pride in my achievements and shame about their previous reactions. The transformation in their attitudes was remarkable, shifting from viewing me as a disappointing failure to recognizing me as someone who had overcome extraordinary obstacles to maintain academic excellence. Derek's family's support throughout this confrontation provided a powerful contrast to the dysfunction they were witnessing. Their unconditional belief in education, their pride in academic achievement, and their protective response to abuse created a model of healthy family dynamics that made Patricia's behavior appear even more aberrant by comparison. The scholarship opportunities one had missed due to Patricia's interference could not be recovered, but Professor Dr. Williams worked with university administration to ensure I was considered for all future awards for which I qualified. The recommendation letters she had written, combined with the documentation of obstacles I had overcome, actually strengthened my applications for graduate school and professional opportunities. Most significantly, this gathering marked the end of Patricia's ability to control the narrative about my life. With the truth fully exposed and documented, she could no longer manipulate family relationships or damage my reputation through lies and deception. The evidence was overwhelming, the witnesses were numerous, and the consequences of her actions were finally appropriate to the harm she had caused. The culmination of my journey from victim to victor arrived with my graduation ceremony in May. After years of night classes, working multiple jobs, and fighting through family sabotage, I was graduating magna cum laude with highest honors in my business program. The university had recognized my exceptional circumstances by nominating me for the Outstanding Student Achievement Award, given annually to one student who demonstrated extraordinary perseverance in pursuing education despite significant obstacles. The ceremony itself was a powerful vindication of everything I had sacrificed and fought for. As I walked across the stage to receive my diploma, Dean Martinez announced my academic achievements, including Dean's List recognition for 6 consecutive semesters, the scholarship awards I had earned, and my selection for the Achievement Award. The applause from Derek's family, Dr. Williams, and other supporters in the audience was thunderous and genuine. Patricia arrived uninvited to the ceremony, having apparently decided that she wanted to witness my graduation despite our estrangement. She positioned herself prominently near the front of the auditorium and began telling anyone who would listen that she was so proud of her daughter's success and that she had always supported my educational goals. Her attempt to claim credit for achievements she had actively tried to sabotage was audacious even by her standards. When my name was called for the Achievement Award, I had the opportunity to give a brief acceptance speech. I used this platform to speak about perseverance in pursuing education when family members feel threatened by academic success. Without naming Patricia directly, I described the experience of maintaining focus on educational goals while dealing with systematic sabotage from people who should have been supportive allies. My speech resonated deeply with audience members who had experienced similar challenges. Several students and graduates approached me afterward to share their own stories of family members who had undermined their educational pursuits out of jealousy or insecurity. The recognition that this problem was widespread rather than unique to my situation was both validating and concerning, highlighting the need for support systems to help students facing educational sabotage. Professor Dr. Williams used her faculty address to highlight the exceptional circumstances some students overcome in pursuing their education. While maintaining professional discretion, she made it clear that she had witnessed remarkable resilience from students who succeeded academically despite active interference from family members. Her comments, delivered with me sitting prominently in the front row as an honored graduate, served as additional public validation of my achievements. Derek's family had become so important to my success that the university invited them to participate in the honor ceremony as my chosen family representatives. Their presence in the special seating section reserved for families of award recipients sent a clear message about who had actually supported my educational journey. The contrast with Patricia's uninvited attendance highlighted the difference between genuine support and opportunistic credit claiming. The graduate school acceptance letter I received during the ceremony was the culmination of Professor Dr. Williams' mentorship and recommendation efforts. The master's program in business administration had not only accepted me but offered a full scholarship plus a research assistantship that would provide living expenses while I pursued advanced education. This opportunity represented complete vindication of my academic abilities and potential for future success. Patricia's attempt to approach me after the ceremony was intercepted by Derek's father, who firmly but politely informed her that I was not interested in contact with family members who had undermined my education. Her visible frustration at being excluded from post-graduation celebrations while Derek's family was embraced demonstrated how completely the family dynamics had shifted from her control. Emma's attempt at reconciliation during the reception was met with appropriate skepticism. She approached me with tears and apologies, claiming that she had made mistakes and wanted to rebuild our relationship now that I was successful. However, her language focused on my achievements rather than acknowledging the harm her actions had caused, suggesting that her interest was in associating with success rather than genuinely making amends for abuse. Jake's behavior at the ceremony was notably different from Emma's manipulation. He maintained distance but did offer a brief, seemingly genuine apology for his participation in Patricia's campaign against me. His acknowledgement that he had been jealous of my academic success and had acted out of insecurity rather than family loyalty felt more authentic than Emma's calculated attempt at reconciliation. The professional opportunities that emerged from my graduation network were immediate and substantial. Several business leaders who attended the ceremony as guest speakers or award presenters offered internship and entry-level positions based on my academic record and the character demonstrated by succeeding despite adversity. The reputation I had built through academic excellence was opening doors that Patricia's lies could never have closed permanently. The legal resolution of Patricia's financial abuse reached conclusion during this period with a settlement that recovered approximately 60% of my stolen college fund money. While the full amount could not be recovered due to money already spent on non-returnable luxury items, the settlement provided sufficient funds to cover graduate school expenses not covered by my scholarship. The legal precedent also established grounds for other students facing similar financial abuse to seek recovery. The restraining order against Patricia's harassment became permanent based on the extensive documentation of her behavior over the previous year. The legal protection meant that she could no longer contact my employers, professors, or professional associates with false reports about my character or capabilities. The peace of mind this provided was invaluable as I prepared to enter graduate school and launch my professional career. Financial independence was fully achieved through the combination of recovered education funds, scholarship money, and work opportunities that emerged from my graduation recognition. For the first time since my father's death, I was not working multiple jobs just to survive but instead had the luxury of choosing employment based on career development rather than immediate financial necessity. Emma's consequences for her theft and harassment continued to impact her own educational opportunities. Several colleges had rescinded admission offers after learning about her involvement in systematic harassment of a family member, and her social media activities had created a digital trail that admissions counselors could easily discover. The long-term impact of her choices was becoming apparent as she faced reduced options for her own future. Jake's progress toward personal growth appeared more genuine than Emma's superficial attempts at reconciliation. He had entered counseling to address the jealousy and insecurity that had led him to participate in undermining my success, and he was working to rebuild relationships with extended family members who had lost respect for him. His path toward redemption was longer and more difficult than Emma's quick apologies, but it seemed more likely to result in actual change. Patricia's social isolation had become complete by the time of my graduation. Extended family members who had once been her closest confidants now avoided her at family gatherings, and community members who learned the truth about her behavior treated her with the distance reserved for people who had violated fundamental standards of decency. The cost of her choices extended far beyond the legal consequences to include loss of social standing and family relationships. The transformation in my relationship with extended family was remarkable and healing. Relatives who had treated me with pity or disappointment based on Patricia's lies now expressed genuine pride in my achievements and shame about their previous reactions. Family gatherings became celebrations of my success rather than sources of stress and humiliation. Most significantly, my graduation represented proof that educational goals could be achieved despite systematic family sabotage. The Achievement Award specifically recognized that I had not only succeeded academically but had done so under circumstances that would have derailed most students. This recognition validated every sacrifice I had made and every battle I had fought to protect my dreams from people who should have been protecting them themselves. The relationship with Derek had evolved into something deeper than friendship during our shared struggles, and his family's invitation for me to consider their home my permanent base provided the stable family foundation I needed for graduate school. Their unconditional support for my educational and professional goals represented everything that family relationships should be but that mine had never provided. 6 months into graduate school, I found myself living a life I had barely dared to imagine during the darkest days of Patricia's campaign against me. My master's program in business administration was challenging and rewarding in ways that reminded me why I had been willing to sacrifice so much to pursue education. The research assistantship provided not only financial support but also valuable experience working with professors on projects that would advance both my knowledge and career prospects. The relationship with Derek had deepened into something beautiful and supportive, built on mutual respect for each other's academic goals and shared understanding of the obstacles some students face in pursuing education. His family had formally welcomed me as a daughter, providing the stable foundation I needed to focus on graduate studies without constant worry about housing or family drama. Their unconditional support for my educational and professional aspirations represented everything healthy family relationships should embody. My professional life was flourishing beyond what I had expected. The internship opportunities that emerged from graduation recognition had led to a part-time position with a consulting firm that specialized in family business dynamics. My research focus on how family dysfunction affects business decision-making was directly informed by my personal experiences, creating expertise that was both academically rigorous and practically grounded in real-world understanding of family manipulation tactics. Patricia's attempts at reconciliation had continued throughout this period, but they followed predictable patterns of guilt manipulation rather than genuine accountability. Her messages and calls focused on how much she missed me and how sorry she was that our relationship had become complicated. She never acknowledged the specific harm her actions had caused or took responsibility for the systematic campaign of lies and financial abuse she had orchestrated. The boundaries I had established were non-negotiable and clearly communicated. I would not consider any contact with Patricia until she sought professional therapy to address the underlying issues that had led her to sabotage her own daughter's education and future. Her refusal to accept this requirement demonstrated that she was more interested in restoring the appearance of family relationships than in addressing the dysfunction that had made real relationships impossible. Jake's journey toward redemption had shown genuine progress over these months. He had completed substance abuse treatment, was maintaining steady employment, and had begun making amends to family members he had hurt during his participation in Patricia's campaign. His apology to me was specific and thorough, acknowledging not just what he had done but why it was wrong and how it had harmed my education and mental health. While trust would take time to rebuild, his consistent actions suggested real change. Emma, by contrast, continued to struggle with the consequences of her choices. The theft charges and evidence of her systematic harassment had created a criminal record that limited her college and employment opportunities. Her attempts to minimize her actions or blame them on family pressure showed that she had not yet accepted full responsibility for her deliberate choices to participate in harming her sister's future. The work I was doing to help other students facing family sabotage had become a significant part of my academic and professional identity. Professor Dr. Williams and I had collaborated on research about educational abuse patterns, and I had begun speaking at conferences about recognizing and addressing family interference in academic pursuits. The response from educators and counselors indicated that this was a widespread problem that needed more attention and support resources. My speaking engagement at the university's annual academic achievement ceremony was particularly meaningful. I addressed an audience of faculty, students, and families about the importance of supporting rather than sabotaging family members' educational goals. The message resonated deeply with attendees who had witnessed or experienced similar dynamics, and several students approached me afterward to share their own stories of family members who felt threatened by academic success. The financial stability I had achieved was remarkable considering where I had been just 2 years earlier. The recovered education funds, combined with scholarship support and income from my consulting work, had eliminated the constant financial stress that had dominated my life since my father's death. For the first time since starting college, I could focus on learning and professional development rather than immediate survival needs. Academic recognition continued to validate the choices I had made and the obstacles I had overcome. My research on family business dysfunction had been accepted for publication in a prestigious business journal, and I had been selected for a competitive fellowship that would fund my doctoral studies if I chose to pursue them. These achievements represented the kind of success that Patricia's sabotage had been designed to prevent. The wisdom I had gained about protecting dreams from toxic people had become central to my identity and professional expertise. I learned that some family members cannot celebrate others' success because it highlights their own perceived failures or limitations. Understanding this dynamic was crucial for maintaining focus on personal goals despite external negativity and manipulation. Recognition that education and self-improvement can threaten insecure people helped me understand Patricia's behavior without excusing it. Her inability to celebrate my achievements reflected her own deep-seated insecurities about intelligence and success rather than any actual problems with my character or capabilities. This understanding was important for healing while maintaining appropriate boundaries. The difference between biological family and chosen family had become crystal clear through my experiences. Derek's family demonstrated that real family support means encouraging each other's growth and success rather than tearing each other down out of jealousy or insecurity. Their unconditional support for my educational goals stood in stark contrast to the systematic sabotage I had experienced from biological relatives. Peaceful acceptance that some relationships cannot be repaired was perhaps the most difficult but necessary lesson I learned. Despite hoping that Patricia might eventually acknowledge her mistakes and seek help for the issues that had driven her to harm her own daughter, I had to accept that she might never be capable of the kind of honest self-reflection that genuine reconciliation would require. Gratitude for discovering real strength through adversity became a cornerstone of my personal philosophy. The challenges I had faced, while painful and unfair, had developed resilience and determination that served me well in graduate school and professional situations. The ability to maintain focus on long-term goals despite immediate obstacles was a skill that would benefit me throughout my career. The final lesson that emerged from this experience was perhaps the most important. Sometimes the biggest obstacle to achieving your dreams is the people who should be supporting them most. Family members who feel threatened by your success may work harder to undermine your achievements than strangers ever would. Recognizing this possibility and preparing to protect your goals from family sabotage is an unfortunate but necessary skill for some people pursuing educational or professional advancement. Looking forward, I felt optimistic about my future in ways that seemed impossible during the worst days of Patricia's campaign against me. Graduate school was opening doors to career opportunities one had always wanted, and the stable family relationships with Derek and his parents provided the emotional foundation needed for long-term success. The reputation I had rebuilt through academic excellence and professional achievement was stronger than ever, based on truth rather than lies. As I prepared for my final exams in the master's program and looked ahead to doctoral studies and career advancement, I reflected on how far I had traveled from that Thanksgiving dinner where I first heard Patricia telling relatives I was a college dropout. The woman she had tried to create through lies and manipulation had never existed, but the woman I had become through perseverance and determination was everything I had always wanted to be and more. The story that began with family betrayal had evolved into one of personal triumph, and the discovery that success achieved despite opposition is the most satisfying vindication possible. Sometimes protecting your dreams means walking away from people who claim to love you but consistently work to harm your future. And sometimes the family you choose becomes more important than the one you were born into. Have you ever had to protect your dreams from people who were supposed to support them? Share your story in the comments below, because knowing we're not alone in these struggles makes all the difference. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real stories about overcoming family dysfunction and achieving success despite the odds. Don't forget to share this video with anyone who might be dealing with similar challenges, because sometimes one person's story of triumph can inspire another person's journey to freedom. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that your education and dreams are worth fighting for, even when the people who should be cheering you on are working against you instead. Stay strong, keep studying, and never let anyone convince you that your goals are less important than their comfort with your success.